What's going on, everybody? Hope you're enjoying your Friday night. We got a little news dump earlier today about the Blazers. Basically, the guy they were going to hire as head coach. It wasn't really official until, I guess, an hour ago, and the contract still hasn't been signed, but the Blazers have effectively agreed with Chauncey Billups for Chauncey Billups to become their next head coach. This has been a conversation all day and for a while on Twitter about Chauncey Billups. He was the front runner from the beginning of this process. He was Dame's preferred choice, his number one choice after Jason Kidd dropped out of the running for head coach. And this hiring is not a surprise whatsoever. Chauncey Billups is a guy who has been connected to Neil Olshey back when Neil Olshey was the general manager of the Los Angeles Clippers. Neil Olshey has called Chauncey Billups one of the best leaders he's ever seen in the game of basketball. Now he will become the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers. Something that we got to touch on and get through before we talk about it from a basketball perspective. Chauncey Billups does come with a little bit of baggage, some allegations back in the 1990s. As far as those go, I don't know, man. We don't judge anybody if they don't like the hiring because of those allegations. If you don't like this hiring for those reasons, completely understandable. Very, very understandable. And I'm not here to tell you that you should like the hiring, or I'm not here to tell you how to feel about this hiring, because I understand that those allegations that came up back in 1997 are they're very serious. For us personally, I mean, at least for me, I don't know. There's nothing we can do about it. I'd like to think that the organization would do a little bit of digging before hiring a guy with those sort of allegations. But of course, we don't know that. I tweeted on the subject. If you want to talk about it with me, feel free to message me on Twitter or message me on Discord. But I mean, at this point, the only thing we can do is break it down from a basketball perspective and what he might bring as the head coach of our basketball team. Is there anything you want to add on to that, Eric?
Yeah, let me just echo that sentiment. I will never argue with anyone who feels that this was a bad hire because of that incident. I know a lot of people have dealt with trauma, whether as a victim or, someone they know has had that happen to them. And it messes up people's lives, and it's never okay. We're not condoning it or saying that it was okay that he did that in his past because it's been a certain amount of time or any of that stuff. And I hope that the Blazers completely vetted him and did the necessary background check on the incident and felt comfortable enough to hire him. I mean, the Clippers hired him a year ago. ESPN has hired him since then. He was in the NBA for a long time. I know that doesn't necessarily matter that much, but I don't have a problem if you have a problem with him being hired for that reason. Just keep in mind, keep that same energy for the owner, though, who also has sexual harassment allegations that she settled out of court. So if you're not keeping that same energy for the owner, it's not to justify either one. But a lot of people are kind of surprised when I say that. But Jody Allen was accused by 13 of her security guard, or her and Paul Allen's security guard, of sexual harassment, and they settled out of court despite denying all those allegations. So if you want to say, oh, Billups is guilty because he settled out of court, well, then you have to keep that same philosophy with the Allens. So and it wasn't like a rape thing or anything like that, but
for Jody,
yeah, but it was still sexual harassment, and so once again, not excusing that, but if you've been fine with her as the owner all this time, and now we're mad that they hired a coach with a sexual harassment claim, or sexual assault, I guess in this case, but just keep in mind that you've been supporting an owner that feels the same way. So just keep that same energy for both cases. Be consistent. Don't be a hypocrite in one or the other. If you want to have a problem with both of them, that's completely fine with me. No problems with that. If you want to tell everyone that they shouldn't like the coach, that's your right to do. But Tori and I are just we're gonna move on from that and just talk about what it means from a basketball perspective. Well, of course, this is going to be a running story because so many people are going to bring it up, and it's going to be an issue. I mean, people aren't just going to forget about it or anything. So we'll have to discuss it from time to time, but we're not ignoring the problem or the situation or saying it's okay or anything like that. We're just going to, now that we've said all this, view the rest of the stream as what it means as him for a basketball coach, and we can discuss all that other stuff at another time.
Yep, I agree. So in terms of basketball, in terms of a basketball perspective, I really like this hiring. In terms of how I think he can be as a coach for this Portland team, there's videos of him breaking down stuff. He's been an assistant coach of the Clippers for how long? 1 year?
1 year, yeah, just 1 year.
Yeah. So this is a fresh hiring, and I think maybe we should talk about that first. A lot of people don't like the hiring because he doesn't have a ton of experience, but he was a very smart player, and from all accounts, a great leader in the locker room. So those qualities are positive qualities in terms of looking at a coach without much experience. I like this hiring because it's not a retread. If you know me, you know I have been against retreads. Yeah, I don't like retreads. The game has changed a lot, and I feel like a lot of NBA coaches have not adapted over time to the new NBA. And I feel like Terry Stotts was one of those guys and didn't adapt as the league changed. So that's part of the reason I didn't want to retread, is because that's an issue you have with a lot of them. If you look at the past few teams that have won the championship, a number of them have been first-time head coaches. You know, Nick Nurse was pretty inexperienced, I'd say. Wins a championship in year one. Steve Kerr hadn't coached at all, even as an assistant, if I recall correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
he was in the front office as a GM.
Was a front office of,
but not an actual coach. No.
Yeah. And
there we go.
Are we back? Yeah, so the internet's been a little weird the last 24 hours. So if we lag, just hang tight, and hopefully... Are we lagging again?
No, we're good.
Are we good? Hopefully we're good. We're still...
Sherman said Pinwheel Empire hacked your Wi-Fi.
Yeah, or something. No, the internet's been spotty for whatever reason the last 24 hours or so. But yeah, so hopefully it's not something that has too many hiccups, but if it does, we'll just wait it out. But yeah, in terms of first-time head coaches, you've had some success with first-time head coaches in the previous few years. Ty Lue is another one that won a championship, and he's done a pretty solid job coaching the Clippers in the playoffs this year. So as far as experience, I'm not too worried about his lack of experience or whatsoever. I'm not really worried about him only coaching 1 year. What are your thoughts on that, Eric?
Yeah, so apparently what happened was he was an analyst for ESPN, obviously, and he wanted very badly to become a head coach, and he realized that he needed some experience probably. So the story goes that he became the assistant this year for the Clippers to get some coaching experience to help him get a head coach. So he was trying before that to get some of these jobs without having that experience. So I guess 1 year is better than none. But honestly, I feel like as long as you know the game, you know how to run practices, you know how all that goes, well, he should probably hire an assistant that has been a head coach before, which we'll get to later. But as long as he does those things, I almost feel like someone coming in new is better because they're not like tied to any strategies. They're not. They have the things that they think will work, but they're not like, oh, I've ran this system for 5 years and it's going to work whether these guys executed or not, and if it's on the players if it doesn't work out or whatever, so like he's going to come in with these fresh ideas. He's going to be motivated to prove everyone that he belongs as a coach versus someone who has had 3 coaching jobs or something, and if he gets fired, who cares? It's just like the 4th team he's been fired from, Mike D'Antoni or whatever. But like yeah, so I'm kind of excited to have a coach in here. From the past, Billups had said some questionable stuff about like players and rosters and stuff that I was kind of turned me off as a GM. But I've watched a ton of videos, interviews with him, some of his coaching philosophy things. Those 2 videos that were posted by Embarking Box, I think they were, on one of Tori's tweets from the other day, are fantastic examples of what has led me to really want him as our head coach in terms of basketball, and that I really think this was the perfect hire, and this is going to be like a home run in terms of how this team adapts to having a new coach, or how that change comes about.
Yeah, so there is a few things that I thought we needed to improve in the coaching department. One, obviously, defensively, I don't think anybody was saying we were well coached. And in terms of like running schemes and that type of stuff, we need to be more diverse in what we ran defensively. We also needed somebody that could just kind of coach technique and a lot of the little things defensively, and Stas wasn't that guy. I am hopeful that Chauncey Billups can be that guy. I think there's a good chance that he can be that guy, that he's not going to be with a new head coach, he's not stuck in his ways with any sort of scheme yet. I feel like he'll be pretty adaptable in that regard. And in terms of a defensive player, like, he was a smart defender. He maybe wasn't, the greatest defender, and his physical attributes would suggest that, he didn't necessarily have the best physical attributes in order to be a top 5 defender in the league or anything like that. But I feel like in terms of just mentally, he was a smart defender. He was a savvy defender. So hopefully he can kind of instill some of the stuff that he knew how to do defensively with Damian Lillard. And if we bring CJ McCollum back, hopefully CJ McCollum, because obviously the biggest personnel topic is like, oh, Dame and CJ can't coexist. Mm-hmm. Neither of them can defend well enough in order for them to coexist in the backcourt. So people are expecting CJ to get moved. If he's not, then hopefully both of them, Dame and CJ, are able to pick up some things defensively from Chauncey Billups. Go ahead.
Yeah, so for the defense, one of those videos that Embarking Box shared was of Chauncey breaking down inexcusable lapses of effort and holding those players accountable, and what it means when you have 4 guys playing defense and just one person messes up their assignment, and how that ruins the whole defense, or if you get lazy getting back on defense, which is all those things have been extreme problems for the Blazers under Stotts, to where we get beaten transition even off of made baskets. We get guys like Draymond Green grabbing a rebound and dribbling up the court, and no one takes ball, and he gets a wide open lay-in in the Western Conference Finals, several times. Those things can't happen in a basketball court, and I liked watching those videos and him saying, like, look, like, this play, like, you cannot have this happen and be a good defensive team. And if we just cut some of those little things out, it's not that hard from going to being one of the worst defenses to middle of the pack. And then if you improve like technique and stuff on top of that, then you were talking about, without even changing personnel, in my mind, you can get up near that 10th top 10 defense. You're probably not going to be one unless you have, better defenders, but you can easily get into the upper half of the league just by cutting out all the BS that you're messing up with. So
yeah.
I really, really like that he was focused on that. He's like showing the breakdown, who broke down, like why it happened, why this person shouldn't have been in this position, why this person shouldn't have helped here. And it's all things that Tori and I have been trying to emphasize, like on this show, with the Blazers not doing. And then it like never changes, or those people aren't ever held accountable for those things. So right off the bat, I feel like he's going to come in and clean that up and tell these guys, look, it's not okay to do this. Like, you cannot continue to mess this up if you want to win and be a good defensive team, which we need to be, and we are going to be. And if you don't continue to do that, then we're going to have to figure something out here, because you can't play in my system if you're constantly messing it up, So I think he's going to come in, and he's got enough cachet as a former player, a former champion. He's going to instantly have the respect of the guys in the locker room. It's not going to be like a period where, like, oh, I don't know about this guy. I'm not quite sure yet. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's going to come right in and get these guys' attention and teach them some stuff right away.
Yeah, and that's the next thing I want to touch on is we needed more accountability, because last year I feel like we had zero accountability from our head coach, and I think Chauncey is a guy that everybody will respect, and he'll be a guy that can step in and hold the players accountable. Even a guy like Dame, he has Dame's respect. We know that he was basically Dame's number one choice at this point in the process. So that, I think, will be an improvement as well. And that goes on the defensive end. That also goes on the offensive end. If CJ McCollum's back next year and he gets into the mode in which, we all know CJ will get into a mode where he's kind of chucking some bad shots, shooting some contested shots. If he gets into that mode, you got to be able to have a head coach that is able to say something to him, that is able to hold him accountable in terms of maybe some shot selection things and how he's playing offensively. And I think Chauncey will be a guy that will be able to do that. He'll have enough respect from the players in order to hold them accountable on both sides of the floor.
Yeah, and I mean, I hope that's just not all talk. I feel like it's not going to be. So it'll be interesting to see just how, like, strict or how like far he'll go to prove a point if people are not doing that. But here's the thing. If you have guys who have a problem with accountability, in my opinion, you don't want those guys on your team, because they're never going to be part of the solution. They're always going to be the problem. So whether that's like CJ or, CJ Ellaby or whatever, like, it doesn't matter, like, who it is. If you're not holding yourself to that same level that the coach is, then I don't think you should be on the team. So it's going to be, when you have someone who truly holds these guys accountable, it gets to the point where you don't have to hold them accountable anymore, because they understand what they need to do and the level they're expecting from the coach, and then therefore, well, give that effort. And if they don't, it'll stand out like a sore thumb, and they'll have to either not be a part of this team anymore, or something, they'll get benched or something will happen. And I don't believe that there's many players on this team that don't care to win or get better or have an improvement on defense enough to have a problem with being held accountable. So I'm like, I look at it this way: it's either like listen to what he's saying and shape up, or ship out. That's going to be my philosophy moving forward. If anyone has a problem with getting in trouble for not playing good defense, or for falling asleep, or being lazy and lack of effort and all that stuff, then they should probably be on the team anymore.
Yeah, agreed. So let me thank some donos. Shout out Alex R, $1 dono, no message. Appreciate it, Alex. Shout out Jason Lee, $2 dono. Says, sheesh, give Billups a chance. Rip City, let's go. In terms of giving him a chance, just basketball-wise, I see, like, just for basketball reasons, I don't see why somebody would have a problem with this hire. Obviously, the other stuff is definitely understandable, but as far as basketball, I don't really understand not giving him a chance.
Yeah.
Shout out Apples, $3 Australian dono, says, I think Chauncey will have the respect of the players, so Apples agrees with us. And then shout out Shaggy Squid, $2 Australian dono, says, when the league doesn't hire Stotts, PDX assistant coach. There's no chance Stotts is going to be the assistant coach in Portland. He'll definitely be able to get a lead assistant job elsewhere if he's not hired as a head coach. But Portland, there's no chance of that.
He's also being paid for this year, so he might just take a year off and stuff.
Paid vacation for a whole year. It doesn't sound too bad to me. There's still Orlando's job open, Washington's job open, so there still is a chance that he could get hired. And then shout out Andrew Hartwell, $5 dono, says, here is some money. Appreciate it, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
Appreciate y'all
Thanks,
donating.
Shady Squid. Thanks,
Apples, Jason Lee, Alex
Jason
R.
Lee, and Alex R.
Yes.
Let me just say this. I thought Stotts was going to get instantly hired the moment he was fired, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's
Didn't
what was
we hear
being
that
said.
excuse?
Mm-hmm.
You can't fire him. He would get swooped up so fast. I do find that funny.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't happened. Indiana was like kind of the favorite spot for him to go, and then they signed Rick Carlisle, so that kind of came out of nowhere. It'll be interesting to see if Stotts is able to land somewhere. I kind of want him to land somewhere to see how that team does. If he lands in Orlando, that team's going to be a lottery team no matter what. And I've said for a team like Orlando, Stotts would be a better coach than for a team like Portland. He's a better rebuilding coach than he is a coach where you're trying to win playoff games. He kind of bridges that gap from rebuild to trying to win. So I don't think he'd necessarily be a terrible hire in Orlando. Washington, it depends on if they blow it up and try and rebuild, if they trade Bradley Beal, or if they're trying to win next year. If they're trying to win, I think it'd be a bad hire for sure. But I've always said, he's not that bad of a coach for a rebuilding team. The problem is we've been trying to contend. So
yeah, we don't have to worry about making adjustments in the playoffs or setting yourself up for success long term. Yeah. Tank
and he's developed. Yeah, he's developed players well. So yeah, Dallas hired Jason Kidd. That was their ex-point guard Rick Carlisle campaigned for him. I think they're hiring him to try and keep Luka happy because I think Luka wanted him. So I think they're going to try and hire him in order to get Luka to re-sign, to not force his way out. And then once he signs an extension, then I think they'll probably make a change there because I obviously don't like Jason Kidd as a coach for multiple reasons. Now, going back to kind of some of the things that we needed to improve offensively, I thought we were too predictable. We needed to play like more of a team offensively. We needed to move the ball more. We need more player movement. Chauncey Billups is a guy who won a championship, Eric, because he played on a team that really played like a team. It was a team that played greater than the sum of their parts. That was a Detroit Pistons team that won a championship. I don't think they had an all-star that year, did they? They won a championship without an all-star. So Chauncey Billups is a guy who's played on a team that plays like a greater than the sum of their parts, so to say. And I felt like offensively under Stotts, especially the past couple of years, we just played like individuals most of the time. We last in the league in terms of assists per possession this past season. The year before, we were last in assists total overall. We've been near the bottom of the league in terms of passing, in terms of ball movement, in terms of assists. So I think that culminated in stretches in the playoffs in the past, and especially this year, where we were not able to get much going offensively. We got bogged down, got stagnant, and we're not able to generate good shots. And I think it was kind of fitting that it ended in the final 16 minutes of Stotts' tenure here in the playoffs. In Game 6, we only scored 20 points against a mediocre Denver Nuggets defense. And I thought that was entirely because... And not entirely because you had a couple of guys miss some good shots, but it was mostly because of the type of offense we were running, extremely stagnant, standing around at half court, taking forever to initiate our offense. I thought that people overrated Stotts offensively, and we could improve in that area, especially when it comes up against playoff level basketball. And Chauncey is a guy who preaches ball movement. He preaches player movement. He's played on a team that truly plays like a team. So I'm encouraged in that regard. Obviously, he might just give the ball to Dame and say, go and get us some buckets. It's easy to do that. But I'm hopeful that he'll be able to instill some ball and player movement and some better offense for us.
First of all, so I looked up. Ben Wallace was an all-star that year, voted on by the fans, not the coaches.
But it wasn't because of his offense.
Yeah, so they had one all-star that year. I think they were like almost all-stars the next year or whatever after the championship. But going back to those videos from a barking box, this is the other thing. Like, this was music to my ears. Chauncey Billups said time and time again, I don't want good shots. I want great shots. I'm all about passing the ball, giving up a good shot to get a better shot, moving players around, cutting, doing different things to get the best shot possible. And he was breaking down specific plays and why these plays worked, even if they missed the shot or whatever. they got the best shot possible on those possessions. And it wasn't just like, oh, look at our offense. We scored 120 points tonight. Look how good we are. We're not worried about that. It was like, no, you can always improve it. You can always get a better shot. And I just love that attitude. I mean, this could all be just speak like that doesn't translate to his coaching. But if he's going to have that mindset, both the defensive thing we talked about holding players accountable and not making mistakes and playing as a unit and having good schemes and all that. And then on top of that, he doesn't want to have an offense that just settles for okay shots or contested shots and stuff like that. Even if we're hitting them, he wants to get better shots and open shots and do more things to open up the offense. And I mean, I'll just say it. This is those two things, what he's saying, like those, I don't think you can find a better fit, at least from a talking point of view. Like I said, we'll see if that translates to actually getting them to buy in and actually do it on the court. But in terms of what a coach wants to come in and do, that is a home run to me. That is the perfect things we should be focused on. And I don't think we can find a better match than him in terms of this coaching search and at this time in terms of what this team needs to take it to the next level.
Yep, I agree. So I'm excited to kind of cover some of the changes in terms of our style of play. That's something I'm excited for next season on our post-game shows, to be talking about what's new with how we play, because how we played got so stale, got so tiresome. And then to listen to the post-game press conferences, and it was just excuse after excuse after excuse. It's just going to be nice to have something different in that regard. And that's part of the reason why I was excited when Sauce got fired, is you're going to be able to break down some new wrinkles. I hope we use Dame off the ball more. Obviously, you got to put Dame in a position to create with the ball in his hands. He's great with the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
It's just a situation where it's like he has to hit such tough shots. If we could generate easier looks for him, it'd be good for our offense and it'd be good for our team. And it'd be much more conducive for postseason success than just running him off pick and rolls constantly and letting him isolate constantly. It would have been nice when they put Aaron Gordon on him, when Dame had it going. I forget which game number that was. It was one of the games in Denver. I think it was game 5, right?
I think it was game 2 when they first
Was it game 2? Yeah, it was game 2. It would have been nice, when Denver sticks Aaron Gordon on Damian Lillard, which everybody figured they might do at some point. Stotts even said that. It would have been nice to have an answer for that, running Dame off ball, running Dame on some screens, making Aaron Gordon chase him through screens instead of just isolating him against Aaron Gordon, where I feel like that's a tougher way for Dame to beat Aaron Gordon than if he's running off screens, moving without the ball. You see Steph Curry and how moving without the ball has made him extremely hard to guard. Defenses can't just take him out of it in the playoffs. Now, obviously, you got a Draymond as a playmaker. You got a Klay Thompson as a lethal shooting guard. But, you got Norman Powell, who was a 40% shooter last year. You got CJ McCollum potentially coming back, who was a 40% shooter last year. You got Yusuf Nurkic, who I believe in as a playmaking center, as a passing center. He can't quite grab a rebound and push the pace in transition like a Draymond can, but in terms of some of the passes that Draymond would feed a guy like Steph in the half court, or if both guys went with Steph, usually his screener would cut and Draymond would hit him on a backdoor cut for a lay-in. A lot of those passes that I see Draymond throw in the half court, I think a Yusuf Nurkic can throw. Yeah. So I feel like all the excuses for not using Dame off the ball were I didn't buy it, okay? And I always just wanted to see it. Can we play that style of basketball? So it's going to be fun to go into next year with that potential.
Yep. Lost my train of thought here.
Talk about offense.
I'm just excited to see something new. I just hope that the players are excited once they start seeing it in a game situation, like, hey, wait, we don't have to just run pick and roll and ISO and try to create offense. Like, we can actually get guys open other ways and make it easier to get shots. Like, what is this? So yeah, I'm excited to see that. I hope if certain players stay, that they're used in better ways. There's a lot more cutting to the basket. There's a lot more ways to, if you're going to shoot threes, like you can still have cutters and then they can kick out to the opposite side or use skip passes and stuff like that. So there's different ways to have a 3-point centric offense without it being just drive and kick out or whatever. So
yeah, I mean, Jake Carey he says he wants to see more of Dame as a back screener. Yeah. Jake Carey is a guy like very knowledgeable about basketball. Mm-hmm. We've always disagreed with him on stats. It'll be interesting to see how much how much we agree on what we're doing under Chauncey Billups. It'll be fun. And Dame is a back screener. I would have loved to have seen that for a guy like Derrick Jones Jr., a lob threat, or even a guy like Anthony Simons. You know what I mean? Dame draws a lot of attention. Let him set a screen and then have him come off another screen towards the ball. That's much better than just kind of walking it up and passing it around the perimeter and it getting back to Dame, the running a pick and roll or isolation, which we did way too much of. So a lot of interesting wrinkles I think you have the personnel to run. And that is one of them. I agree.
And wait, hold on. I was trying to find this comment, but
you lost the comment.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just excited to have a fresh terminology, fresh person. It has there's no connection to anything any of these guys have done in the past. I think that's going to be good just to have a fresh voice in there.
Yep, I agree. Let's see. There was a comment that I just lost that I wanted to read off. We're trying to read your comments. We're just losing them. Chat's moving a little quickly. Mm-hmm. But somebody asked when the announcement was made. It was kind of basically made earlier today, but I didn't want to go live because it wasn't official enough. It was kind of weird. Part of me was like, should we go live? And it's like, no, we'll wait until they say it's actually happening 100%. And then that was announced about hour and a half ago, maybe a little bit less than that. So you had Woj and Shams on that, so it's definitely trustable. But yeah, shoot.
So Randall Pink Floyd says if Bill's experiment fails, does Olshey throw Dame under the bus? I mean, here's the situation. If this doesn't work out, whether it's coaching related or roster related or whatever the case is, if they do not get past the first round next year, Olshey's gone. I don't think he can survive that. He's out of excuses. He threw Stotts under the bus. In my opinion, rightfully so. But he's out of excuses. He can't pass the buck. If you want to believe all these people that Jody wanted to hire Becky and Olshey wanted to hire Billups, well, Olshey won that battle, and I don't think that was true. I don't think that was a battle. I think they kind of floated that Becky thing out there just to have some good PR by not, they say they were really intrigued by her even though they didn't hire her, just to kind of minimize not hiring her, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But I mean, we don't even know if that was legit or not. I mean, all these people are claiming they have sources and that, who knows? But he got his guy. This was obviously his choice. He got his man. It was Billups. If he's a crappy coach, or if he's a decent coach and the roster's not good enough, those both fall on Olshey now. He doesn't have anywhere to turn. It's his fault if the coach sucks. It's his fault if the roster is not good enough to make a deep run or contend. So, I mean, he can't pass the buck anymore. He's passed it down the road. And, I still believe in him as our GM. I know most people do not share that same sentiment. I think he is going to improve this team enough to where the coach is going to make a big difference. And, I mean, that obviously comes down to whether he trades CJ or not for most people. If he trades CJ, people are going to say, oh, finally he's like changing or he did something good or whatever. And if he doesn't trade CJ, there's going to be, 80% of the fan base that just will not, no matter what happens this season, will not get past the fact that he kept CJ and did not trade him again. So I think a lot of it for people is going to come down to that. But in my mind, no matter what he does, he's on the hook now, and he's going to be held accountable. He can't have the same press conference next year saying that it was someone else's fault. He hired the guy in this position. And you can say, well, he hired Stotts too. But, I mean, the situation is he apparently was going to fire him after the Pelican series. And Dame went to Paul Allen and begged him not to fire him or whatever. And so here we are. They go to the Western Conference Finals the next year, and then all of a sudden you can't fire him. And they think they're stepped up into a level, and then the next 2 years they completely fall back down to earth. And so he fired him. I don't think it was his choice to not fire him before, but once again, those excuses are all now out the window. You can't use any of those anymore. He has his guy. He's going to be put in a situation where he better have his roster as well. If he's going to keep CJ, he's going to have to be willing to die with that decision, because if it doesn't pan out and if the roster is a problem, it will fall on him. I want the roster to improve. I really want them to make a trade and make a big splash and all that.
What's your dream offseason? Let's hear it.
Well, my dream offseason is your trade from our mock offseason is somehow getting a Pascal Siakam type who would, along with Robert Covington, solidify our wing defensively and also provides a lot of that ball movement and passing ability, dribbling ability that a Draymond would have. A guy who can grab a rebound and run the offense without having to pass to the point guard. Speed up the tempo a little bit. Not the greatest shooter, but I think his shooting would improve playing with Dame. And I think that we don't necessarily need everyone to be a good three-point shooter. So that would be my dream scenario if we're going to trade CJ. My other dream scenario is, I know I'm kind of joking when I say this, so don't kill me for this, but part of me just wants them to run it back so that we could definitively say whether or not coaching makes a difference. Because if we just re-sign Norm and don't trade CJ and run it back, and we are remarkably better, then you and I'm not trying to say I would get a big head or egotistical or anything like that, but you and I could never be questioned about basketball again if that happened, because we put our neck on the line. We've defended the roster. We've defended or stressed how important these coaching things are and how much they do make a difference, while everyone else told us we're idiots and said that it doesn't matter and all that stuff. So part of me just wants them to run it back with a good coach if Billups is a good coach and see what they can do with the roster. And if they actually contend with this roster, then I could just tell everyone to STFU every time they say something about my opinion or whatever, and just hold my head up high that I was right. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get that opportunity to prove that either way, and so we'll never know. But part of me just wants that to be my dream offseason.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if Billups sees a Sir Little, he's oh, I have to play him, which is the exact opposite of Terry Stotts, where it seemed like Terry Stotts tried to find ways not to play him. So that would be interesting in terms of playing time as well, and then for all the reasons you stated. But yeah, Pascal's my dream trade. My dream offseason would involve a CJ for Pascal trade, likely with the third team that CJ goes to, that gives up picks, rebuilding assets, and it would require Toronto hitting the rebuild button. The rebuild is off to a good start. They got into the top 4. So I'm hoping they take my guy Jalen Suggs, because I'd love the Jalen Suggs and Gary Trent Jr. backcourt long term, as fans of both those guys. So that's kind of my hope for their offseason. And then there's a follow-up trade after that that would be intriguing, and I'm not going to say it because it's my next planned move in our mock offseason, so I'm not going to say it. Just stay tuned. We'll have to wait and see on that. But Siakam's a dream target.
Yeah.
Other than that, somebody was asking Marcus Smart. I don't see it. It's a downgrade offensively. It's an upgrade defensively, but you're still getting a guard that, I mean, maybe he's more of a small forward than Norman Powell, but you're still a bit undersized, so it doesn't necessarily solve that issue. So yeah, I mean, CJ for a forward that's equal to him and at least a decent defender is like a pretty good idea. So like Tobias Harris would qualify as well. Obviously, I'm not as on board the Ben Simmons trade bandwagon. I dropped a video on that in case you're curious for my thoughts on that. But yeah, I mean, that's the dream offseason is Siakam for me at this point.
So just for the record, Smart for CJ doesn't work. Boston would have to include a lot more salary, so
yes.
I don't know how they'd get there without including guys like Tristan Thompson and stuff like that, which would be a horrible trade for us, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But one guy, I wasn't really thinking of this as a possibility, but one guy who in our mock-off season the Utah Jazz just seemed to throw away, and that's Joe Ingles. If we got Smart and Ingles in a deal for CJ somehow, like I don't know, like Boston would have to send some sort of compensation to Utah. Who knows if they want to mix it up a little bit after losing in the second round. But yeah, so I don't know, something like that is kind of intriguing to me. I know I haven't said much about trading CJ for parts, but I think like two parts like that, like a super efficient scorer that can handle the ball. I mean, I think he was one of the most efficient scorers of all time this year, Joe Ingles, that is. And then Marcus Smart, who would bring a lot of toughness and grit that this team has not had. Just a guy who gets after people defensively and is relentless on that end. Yeah, I think changing the identity of the team a little bit. The Celtics do not have exceptions to make CJ for Smart work because you can't combine the trade exception with any other player, and they used part of it to bring in 48 last year, so not quite fixable that way. But yeah, so something like that is kind of intriguing, and I don't know, maybe somewhat realistic versus Siakam or Ben Simmons or whatever. So yeah, that'd be the kind of thing, if we were going to trade CJ for two lesser parts, I would maybe consider. Mm-hmm. But other than that, yeah, I just don't really like a lot of, if we're not getting Jaylen Brown, I don't really like a lot of players that the Celtics would have to attach to that.
Yeah, Jake Carey brings up Gordon Hayward, which is a name I've seen brought up, but Charlotte's not going to want guards, so it'd have to be a 3-team deal, maybe even a 4-team deal. They would want a forward back for Hayward, which in that case, why don't we just take that forward? Or they're going to want a center. So
I would rather have CJ than Gordon Hayward.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. If he was an injury prone, I would say I'd rather have Hayward, but given his injuries, it's definitely not a no-brainer by any sort of the word, any sort of sense. So, I mean, Hayward last season in 34 minutes a game averaged almost 20 points per game, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, shot 47% from the field, 41.5% from 3, and he's a solid defender. He's not great, but he's solid.
He was okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's okay defensively, and obviously he's 6'7", so provides more size there. The problem is in the last 4 seasons, he played 1 game, came back, played 72, played 52, then played 44, and missed the playoffs this past season. So he is a guy that is a bit injury prone at this point. So not sure we want, more injury prone guys. If he ends up being healthy, I think it would be like, not my first move by any sort of, it wouldn't be my first move, but as kind of a fallback option, it is a little intriguing depending on what assets we could maybe get back or have to give up.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I don't know. See, that to me just screams lateral move. I don't know.
But would you do a lateral move if you got a guy who was 6'7" instead of 6'3"? And a little better defender?
Maybe. I don't know. I like I said, I'd probably just keep CJ in that case, but I could see the reasoning either way. I'm not like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, Siakam, I think everybody kind of agrees that's the number 1 guy, so hopefully Siakam is... it's not going to be easy to get a deal done.
Here we go. Send CJ to Boston. Send some sort of pieces to the Hornets, and then we get Ingles and Smart out of it somehow, and then the Hornets get something they want.
Where does Hayward go?
Hayward goes to Utah or
back to Utah. Interesting. Interesting. CJ for TJ Warren, no thank you. He didn't play at all last year. I wouldn't give CJ for TJ Warren. Yeah, so, I mean, there's some interesting targets. And as we get closer to the draft, we'll talk more like off-season stuff. Let's thank some donos. Shout out Shaggy Squid, $2 dono. He says, let's do good ball movement and pass CJ to a different team. Shout out Sebastian Absolution for a $2 dono with no message. And then shout out BR Swerve for a $5 dono. Says, I'm happy for change and excited because Chauncey seems very promising. And, yeah, I mean, it's just going to be completely different. We had Stotts for 9 years. We had Stotts for 9 years and got so used to him, and it got so repetitive and stale. It's gonna be nice to have something different.
Yep. People are talking about Kawhi. Man, if Billups somehow convinces Kawhi to come here because he liked playing for him this year, I don't think it's a possibility. It'd be really tough for the Blazers to work out a sign and trade, but if that is on the table, man, that I don't know of. I mean, obviously he's had some health concerns. He's got the ACL sprain now and all that kind of stuff. But fit-wise with Dame, I don't know if there's a much better player than Kawhi out there right now.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not Kawhi, maybe it's. I would like Nick Batum for a taxpayer mid-level exception. Nick Batum looked really good this past season, was a really good defender and shot the ball really well. So he kind of had a bounce-back season, so I wouldn't mind Nick Batum. He's a guy that can play 3 positions. He can play the 2, the 3, or the 4, and he actually played the 4 pretty well this year for the Clippers. I mean, Reggie Jackson's going to get paid too much. I would love Reggie Jackson as a third guard if we traded like CJ and Anthony. Then, if you had Dame, Norm, and Reggie Jackson. I know Reggie Jackson's 6'3", but he has a 7-foot wingspan and can play some. He's a solid defender, and obviously offensively he's been on fire this postseason. He's just going to get paid too much for us to afford him. But Batum, maybe Batum wants to follow Chauncey Billups. It'll be interesting to. I want to kind of do some digging and see how much of Batum's play might be able to be accredited to Chauncey Billups. Maybe Chauncey Billups had a hand in that. I'm not sure, but if he did, then maybe Batum wants to follow Billups and come back to Portland. That would be intriguing too.
Yeah, from everything I've heard, he hated Portland and doesn't want to come back. But once again, different.
He hated the city.
Not necessarily the city, but like he hated the front office and the team, and never felt like he got what he deserved here or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, other than Olshey and Dame, everything's completely different, though. So.
Yeah, it's true. Well, CJ was technically on.
Yep, shout out Kyle Wilson, $5 dono. Says, seeing the anti-Olshey fans melting down right now brings me an indescribable amount of joy. I hope they boycott too. Cheaper seats for me, LOL. Yeah, anybody that doesn't like this coaching signing for basketball reasons, I just don't understand it. And if it's for basketball reasons, I feel like they haven't really done their research with Chauncey. For the other reasons, I completely understand it and won't give anybody crap for that and won't judge anybody for having an issue with this head coaching signing because of the allegations. So that's just kind of where we lie with it. For basketball reasons, I love this signing.
Yes, I agree.
Is it right to call it a signing? A head coach signing? I love this deal, this agreement.
Hiring.
Kind of feels weird. Hiring. There you go. Yeah, that's the word I was searching for. I was like, signing doesn't sound too right. But appreciate the $5 dono from Kyle Wilson. What else? Is there other things to talk about with this signing that we haven't touched on?
Well, I want to go back to something Jake said about the Dame setting the back screens or whatever. Those of you who have watched this show for the last couple of years know that I always bring up the game against Memphis in the bubble where we ran. We had Melo in the corner, and Dame would go and set a pick for him off ball, and Melo would curl off that right into the paint, and it worked both times, and we haven't seen that play since. And I just think there's so many things you can do with Dame off ball, not even as him being the option, but just the amount of attention he would get from the defense and how that would free up other players for open looks. And so if Chauncey can unlock some of that, that would be really nice.
Yep. Shout out Dominique Davis, $5 dono, says, you guys got a good one in Chauncey. We loved him here winning a championship for us in 2004. Wish him and you guys nothing but success. Appreciate it, Dominique Davis. I assume he's a Pistons fan. So congrats
on the number one pick.
Yeah, congrats on the number one pick. Eric,
and the we're doing pick.
Yeah, we're doing a mock offseason where 30 people run a team, and Eric has fleeced his way up to the number 3 pick as well. So he'll get he has 2 of the top 3 picks. So yeah, that's we'll cover those mock off-season moves on Blazers Uprise Live on Monday. If you're not subscribed to Blazers Uprise Live, it's the top link in the description below. It's our second streaming channel. We stream Mondays and Thursdays, going live around 9:30 p.m. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to come up with some like different type of wrinkles that they could run. I didn't want to do that in the past because we all knew that they wouldn't do anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? Anything new, we knew they weren't going to do. So it was just like depressing almost to like look at things and, oh, we could run this and we could run this and we could run this because you knew it wasn't going to happen under Terry Stotts. With Chauncey Billups, I mean, who knows? I mean, anything. It could be anything. So that'll be fun going forward to maybe talk about some wrinkles that Portland can run and might run. We'll have to wait and see. So that'll be preseason content in September, early October for you guys.
Yeah, it's tough. From everything we've heard, like Paul George has said it, that he's improved just how he looks at the game of offense and how he play makes and stuff like that. But like specifically plays that the Clippers run, it's hard to know who's responsible for them. So a little bit of it's going to be kind of a wait and see thing. But from everything I've heard, he's kind of been the offensive guru to help them unlock some of their playmaking and passing on that team. Yep.
Hey man, maybe that's the big brain move, is it will help land Kawhi. that would be something, man. I mean, I'd love Kawhi. But Paul George has looked better in the playoffs, and if he credits Chauncey Billups to that, that's encouraging, because we've needed a coach that can help uplift us in the playoffs. I feel like in previous years, it's been the opposite effect.
Are you confident, says Shervin, that Billups will inherit Ty Lue's adjustment abilities?
I mean,
that's tough to know, but
I mean, it's like a basketball IQ thing, you know. Chauncey Billups has to be comfortable having the team play different styles of basketball, you know. Sometimes it might be an aggressive style of defense, sometimes it might be conservative. If he's comfortable letting the team play both an aggressive style of basketball defensively and a conservative style of basketball defensively, then I have confidence in him willingly switching to one or the other depending upon the situation. Stotts was too comfortable running a conservative style of defense, so he didn't switch to a more aggressive style of defense, even if he had more athletic defenders on the floor, even if they were down 10 and needed to make up some points quickly. You know, they didn't try and force turnovers and get out on the fast break. It was just constantly, for the most part, way too conservative in terms of the defense we were running. And also situationally, we didn't run the right stuff against the right guys. So that stuff has remained to be seen. There's certain aspects of Billups' coaching that we don't know how they're going to pan out yet. So we can't really speak on it. We can only speculate. But, I mean, I'm open-minded as to what Billups can bring this team on the court. And I'm encouraged. I'm optimistic in terms of him as a coach.
Slim Ben says, wait, no, drop scheme next year? That was my favorite thing to watch.
That was the favorite thing for players to play against for the most part. So
same with opposing teams. But here's the thing. When you win a championship and you're around that, you learn that you can't just run a basic thing against every team. You have to be able to game plan specific areas of the game have specific coverages in certain situations, certain players, whether they're dribbling left or right, or like tendencies, or some players you want to force right or left. And I feel like we didn't really do a lot of that stuff. It was just like, oh, run our defense. If it works, it works. If not, like maybe we'll occasionally try something else, but not really give it a full shot or whatever. And like players didn't even know what they were doing when we tried something else. And I feel like a coach that understands that that doesn't work in the NBA as a champion player, he won't just like be like, oh, well, it's not working. Oh, well, I'll just keep running it until it works someday. Like, I just don't think most coaches will do that other than stubborn older coaches that are stuck in their ways. So I think that's why you're seeing so many first time coaches have success with good teams lately, is because they come in and try new things, and it works because it's new, and they continue to adapt it as they go, instead of just being like, nope, we're going to run this and it's going to work, or we're going to be terrible on defense, but we're going to keep running the same thing even though we're 29th on defense. Like, that's so illogical. I never understood that. Like, at least try something different. What does it matter if you're bad on defense, because you're already bad on defense? So at least try to change it or something. So I don't think a new coach is going to come in here and just like not change it, or not game plan, or not study enough, or not go over enough film to be adept to changing the game plan, or setting a firm game plan for each game and each opponent. So I'm excited to see how that turns out.
Yeah. So he has to fill out an assistant coaching staff.
Yep.
Who are some targets for assistant coaches that you're intrigued by? Do you have any?
Yeah, the first call would probably be to Steve Clifford. It's a guy who, he hasn't had the greatest teams, but he's had some success defensively. I think he's a former head coach. People are mentioning David Fizdale, who's also a very good assistant coach and with some coaching experience. So I think one of those two guys would be perfect. Like I said, someone in that mold who has coached defense before, can give him some pointers, but also isn't going to like threaten him as the head coach or whatever. But just kind of a steadying influence. I don't think there's a lot of guys like Portland, Maine mentions Kenny Atkinson, Mike Brown, D'Antoni is another guy. Those guys aren't going to leave their positions, I don't believe, to take an assistant coach with us after some of those guys, like a D'Antoni, actually were interviewed for the head coaching job. It's not going to be a case where you could be like, hey, I know you didn't get the head coaching job, but would you like to be our assistant instead? Like, those guys aren't going to leave their situations for that. So I don't think that's possible. But, he could assemble a fun staff other than... I think you have to have at least one guy, just a solid head coach that has some experience. And then the rest of the guys can be kind of younger, fun players. Like if he wants to bring in a Ben Wallace and some of those Detroit guys to help him coach the team, I mean, I'm all for anything else on the staff.
Yeah, I've seen Darvin Ham thrown out there. He's intriguing. He's been linked to some head coach openings. I don't really know much about him. I can't put you on the spot. I don't really have a name myself. But yeah, a head coach. First time head coaches do well when they have a head coach by their side to kind of help guide them if they encounter a situation that they don't know how to handle quite yet, so the lack of an experience, it helps having some experience in a head coaching capacity next to him. So I agree with that. Steve Clifford is interesting. Mike Brown is a guy that we've liked, and he's still the assistant coach for Golden State, correct?
Yeah, I doubt he would leave.
That we can pry him away, but I mean, that would be a guy that I'd love as a lead assistant. It'll be interesting to see how they fill out the staff. I'd be down to bring David Vanderpool back as an assistant coach. It sounds like he's not going to be an assistant coach in Minnesota any longer, and he wasn't really tied to any head coaching openings like he was in the past. So maybe that's a guy we could potentially bring back. I'm not quite sure. If you guys have any other ideas for associate coaches, let me know.
Evan Turner. I'm fine with that. That's kind of like the fun stuff I was talking about. I don't know. He's an assistant this year, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm all for like smart former players. As long, like I said, as long as they have one good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. So we'll have you guys covered when they do hire them. We'll talk about it on Twitter. I'm at Tori Jones YT. Eric is at HoopsJock. The channel is at Blazers Uprise YT. Twitter links are in the description below. And then we will talk about it on Blazers Uprise Live as well. Again, that channel link is in the description below at the very top of it. So we will kind of break down some of the associate head coaches. And Barking Box throws out Rip Hamilton. Rip Hamilton's really close with Chauncey Billups. I mean, I wouldn't mind that, I guess, not as the lead assistant, but as an assistant coach, there's a lot of assistants to hire. I wouldn't be against that. I wouldn't be against pretty much anything at this point in terms of assistant head coaches.
I like Ishfluence mentioned Phil Beckner. I love some of his philosophies and things he says on Twitter. And he's obviously got Dame's ear, so I don't know if like Dame would even want that. Like, I think some of those guys would rather have their personal trainer separate from a coaching staff, but not bad. Lloyd Pierce, no. I will be
yeah, that's the one. That's the
if we bring in
one
Lloyd
guy.
Pierce, no. Some people are mentioning offering the assistant position to Becky Hammond so she didn't get the coaching job. That's like an insult. There's no way she would accept that. She's going to go back to the Spurs or get hired by one of these other openings. There's no way you're gonna be like, nope, sorry, you weren't going to be hired as head coach, but would you like to be in a lower position with our organization? Or the same position you're already in, like most. That's a way to get a bad reputation around the league. So yeah, I don't even think you can offer that.
Yep, agreed.
Jordan Kent. I'm sorry,
Kent,
I didn't mean to
Hurd.
laugh at that.
I mean, Jerry Stackhouse too. I mean, there's a number. We could go down the list. Fizdale, no, thank you. Mike Rice, yeah, no, thank you. So okay, there's more than just one name that I wouldn't necessarily like, but for the most part, would be open to whatever. However, the organization and Chauncey wants to fill out the associate head coaching positions. Other than that, anything else you want to talk about with this hiring?
Yeah, Shaggy Squid actually brings up a really good question. We don't have to go very deep in it if you need to go, but
no, I don't need to. I'm just wondering.
He says, do you agree that we shouldn't jump to conclusions too early next season? The team will be learning drastic new system and play compared to Stotts need a learning period. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, you can jump to conclusions about what they're trying to do.
Right.
You shouldn't jump to conclusions based off results right away, right? If you see them and they're trying to move the ball and they're running some stuff that they should be, and they are, switching up things defensively, that's good. Now, it might take them some time to getting used to. So if they're struggling with it at first, you shouldn't jump to conclusions. You should just be encouraged by the fact that they're doing it. If they come out and they're playing exactly like they played under Terry Stotts and haven't changed anything, then it's okay to jump to the conclusion like, what in the world? You know what I mean? You'll be able to tell what the change in philosophy is, in my opinion, right off the bat next year. It just the results might not come right away. So that's how I answer that.
Mm-hmm. I just don't want to hear the people who are like every season, even though we're running the exact same offense and defense, like, oh, got to give it 20 games, got to give it, can't judge off 5 games. I don't want to hear them then criticize without waiting that same time period.
If people don't like this hiring, they will, though.
Yep, just be consistent. If you've been that way in the past, stick to that philosophy. Give him 20 games, and I'm fine with that. If you've been like Tori and I and criticized Stotts from game one some of these seasons, then that's fine to criticize from day one. And I completely agree with what Tori said. Judge it based on what they're trying to do, not the results. And we've said that all season, that the results, even when CJ and Nurk get hurt, we have decent results during that time, and everyone's like, oh my goodness, Stotts is the greatest coach ever, but we weren't doing anything to put us in a better position to win a championship. Meanwhile, yes, they got kind of lucky with injuries last series, but a team like Milwaukee spent their entire season kind of forfeiting the number one seed to be the third seed, but they were working on stuff that better prepared them for the playoffs. And so if they win a championship this year, it's because they were doing stuff differently and didn't necessarily care about the results during the regular season to be better prepared. It still might not work, but at least you actually try to do something different. So I agree that the thing is to look for, are they doing things that have cost them playoff series or chances to contend in the past that now, without those being a problem, like maybe this team can win a game or a series that they wouldn't have before and take that next step into contention like a Phoenix Suns team did this year. So like that's what I'm going to be looking for, just to see how things are corrected when they're bad, or if a situation comes up where Dame gets trapped in a certain area of the court because we're running a certain play too much. I want to see them what they do to adjust it instead of running that same play and keep getting him trapped in the same spot or whatever. So like just little things like that I just want to see. So it's not necessarily going to be like what a record is or so on, but as long as we're playing a better level of basketball and are in a position to win playoff series and make a deep run, I won't have an issue with it. But if we're, like you said, if we're sitting here complaining after every game about the exact same things, then it'll end up being a terrible hire. And Olshey's gone, and we are probably going to have to talk about blowing up the team at some point in the next year or two. But
yeah, hopefully that's not the case. I don't think that's going to be the case.
I don't think so at all.
Shout out Dominique Davis, another $5 dono, says, via either trade, draft, or free agency, I think you guys need a multi-purpose wing that's at least 6'8" and athletic 5 that can be a lob threat for drivers, in my opinion. I agree on the wing part. I mean, that's kind of the upgrade that to be made for our roster. I like Nurkic as a center, and I think Nurkic can catch lobs and throw down lobs. We just don't really throw them, you know? So I would keep Nurkic, and I would trade for a guy like Siakam. That's what I've done in my mock offseason. I think a lineup of Dame, Powell, Covington, Siakam, Nurkic is a very good lineup, and I think that lineup has a legitimate chance to be top 10 on both ends of the floor. I believe Pascal Siakam is a comparable defender to Ben Simmons. I think Ben Simmons is a little bit overrated. I think Pascal Siakam's a little bit underrated. So defensively, I love that lineup. Offensively, I love that lineup. You'd have the best maybe playmaking front court in the league. Nurkic can pass. Siakam can pass well for his position. It would be interesting. I'd like it.
Yeah, and I, like you, still want to see what we do with Nurk in a better offense and running a more aggressive defense where he can trap and play the way he has wanted to play. And then having a coach that won't allow him to just be a baby at times and check himself out of games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So as long as we get those two things, I think we'll see an improved Nurk. I mean, I still believe he is maybe not all-star level, but near all-star level player if he's healthy and plays in the correct system for him. But I do think we need a backup that is an energy big, that can play defense, that can rim run, and that can, as a quick jumper who can get either a low pass and go up quickly or go up for a lob.
Nerlens Noel.
Yeah, Nerlens Noel
is the dream.
Would be a good fit as a backup center. I don't know if we're going to have a chance to be in his price range, or I'm sure New York's going to value re-signing him. But yeah, I mean, I thought maybe Giles could develop into that. He still could, I guess. And Zach Collins could, if he's ever healthy, be that guy too. He's maybe not as quick of a jumper, but defensively, I think he's just as good. And he provides some other things like some floor spacing and passing that a Nerlens Noel wouldn't provide. But yeah, just try to get a backup that you can play a little different style with the second unit, maybe push the pace a little bit more. That would be the only thing I would say about that. So I do agree that we do kind of need a player like that. I don't think it has to be for CJ though.
Yeah. Agreed with that. I forgot what I was gonna say. Yeah, I mean, I just don't think you could get much back for Nurkic too. Like, if you're gonna go out and get like a Miles Turner or something, like, you're gonna have to give up assets on top of Nurkic, and I feel like Nurkic can be as good or maybe a little bit better than a Miles Turner. Obviously, Nurkic is a question mark at this point, but you almost need that question mark. You need a guy that his ceiling is high. You know, you need high ceiling players because you need those guys to play at a high enough level where you can win a championship. So I'd rather have a riskier guy with a higher ceiling at this point than a safer guy with a lower ceiling, if that makes sense. Because we need upside with the roster.
Yeah, I've always said that Nurk's value is more to us than he would ever be in a trade if he plays up to his potential. And like I said, I think under a new coach, I think Chauncey is a guy. Let me just put it this way: Nurk obviously had a problem with stats. I mean, he did not.
Oh, that's what I wanted to say, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just get that out there. So, in my opinion, a lot of his problems are because Nurk. I mean, he's actually said what our problems are, and we still didn't do anything about it, right? Yeah. And then Stotts is kind of just like, Nurk's going rogue, is doing Nurk things, like, oh, it's not my fault he fouls out of games, and like that kind of stuff. So,
yeah,
I don't think Nurk respond well to that, and I think you got a guy, Chauncey Billups, who I think Nurk will respect, and not only will he probably listen to Nurk when he says, like, hey, look, I'm really good, I want to try doing this, can we try it sometimes? I think a new coach will maybe like allow players to have a little more say, maybe. And then at the same time, if Billups wants him to play a certain way, it's not going to be like him versus Nurk or who's going to get their way. A good coach will be like, hey, I know you want to play this way, but in my mind, can you just try this way and just like trust me on this, and this is why, because in my experience when I've done this in this situation, it's worked out better to do this, and so, and like maybe he'll just respond in a different way, and it won't be like, oh man, Stotts wants me to run drop again, this is so stupid, like, because you can't play your best, and you're going to look like you're moping a lot when you're all constantly like pissed that you're not able to be aggressive and trap or go after steals or go after try to force turnovers and stuff like that, and I would be frustrated too if I was Nurk in this both offense and defensively in his position. So I just think a new coach, I would not just give up on Nurk and trade him for nothing or try to attach a bunch of stuff to get a better center. Like, obviously, if an Embiid became available or someone like that, then yeah, sure, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But in my opinion, I would give Nurk at least one more year or two to show that he can respond well in a different situation.
Yeah, I agree. Nurk needs somebody he can respect, and I feel like he lost respect for Stotts, and that's not going to go well with a guy like Nurk. I think Nurk has respect for Chauncey, so more optimistic with Nurk's potential play, and especially how he might be used with Chauncey Billups as head coach compared to Terry Stotts.
Yep.
Shouts Shaggy Squid, $5 Australian dono, says, sign Harry Giles to a 2-year, $5.7 million deal. Bench of Giles at power forward, Collins at center would be fire under Billups, and we would keep playmaking big in Giles when Nurkic is off. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want a rotation with Giles in it. I feel like we can get a 9-man rotation, all better players than Harry Giles. I still feel like the bench could be really solid next year. And I feel like Giles doesn't want to be here. I mean, he didn't get a chance really at all last season. Yeah. Obviously, new coach, new situation, but I'm not sure Giles necessarily wants to be here.
Yep. I would love Giles back as in the bench guy, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be tough because if you sign him to that contract, you're using part of your one avenue to sign a better player, and that's the tax mid-level exception. So I don't like splitting that up unless it's for sure like two rotation players that are just signing here for cheap because they like the situation versus, I mean, if we can bring him back on a minimum, I'm fine with that. But
Yep. Shout Ish Fluent $5 donut says if Hannibal Lecter ran a 4.3, we'd probably call it an eating disorder. Cardinals GM Steve Keim on how sports franchises evaluate off-field issues. Appreciate the dono. Ish Fluent, the $5 dono.
do you get that reference?
Not really, to be honest. So,
So Hannibal Lecter is from a movie in
I don't watch movies.
He is a cannibal. He eats his victims. So they're saying if he was like athletic or good at a sport and ate people, they would just call it an eating disorder versus cannibalism. And he'd have a job in sports. So that's the joke.
Yeah, no to hiring people that eat people.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I mean, and he didn't run a 4.3. So
Dionysus is asking, what's up, Dionysus? He's asking about the contract terms. Apparently, they're still working out the final details of the contract, so no one knows the exact details
yet. Yeah, we will talk about it when that stuff comes out.
Mm-hmm.
But we do not know yet. So, anything left to cover with this hiring, Eric?
No. The last thing I want to mention is stupid tweet today saying that Dame will demand a trade if we do not get another all-star here in Portland this summer. Guys, don't believe that stuff. It's so dumb. Yes, in the future, maybe in a few years, if we're still, treading water and stuff like that, Dame might request a trade. But what does that even mean? If we traded or somehow signed Mike Conley because he was an all-star last year, Dame is like, oh, we signed an all-star, I'm not leaving now. That doesn't make any sense. He just wants the team to be better. I think that's within his right to want that team to get better. I think we took a huge step tonight in making that a reality. And don't listen to that crap. Dame's not gonna demand a trade this offseason. It's not in his character. I mean, just a few weeks or a week before the playoffs, he was saying how he will spend his whole career dying to bring a parade down Broadway and all this stuff. So that stuff doesn't just change if that's who you are as a character. And like I said, yes, maybe eventually that will start to wear on him as he winds down the end of his career. But this summer, I just don't see that happening, man.
Yeah, I agree. Don't buy rumors. I mean, since when do rumors about the Blazers ever really get things right in terms of Dame? We've heard this before. In terms of personnel, I don't know. Just don't buy rumors. I don't know how many, I just don't know how else to put it. The front office is tight-lipped. Dame has said numerous times, straight from Dame himself, how he feels. So why are we going to believe Joe Schmo on a random website you've never heard of when he says Dame is getting antsy or whatever? I don't understand that.
No way. So Dame for Kuzma isn't true? No, that's not.
Oh my goodness, yeah. And just because that was brought up, I'm tempted just to end the stream right now because that's disgusting.
Well, that's the other thing that came out was CJ has been assured he will not be traded this offseason. Man, no one knows that. Even Olshey doesn't know that. So they
and then Jason Quick said that
he's
CJ
most likely. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Spencer wants a 5-minute ban. So there you go. There's a 5-minute ban for you, Spencer. Yeah. I'm not tripping about Dame this offseason. He's gonna be a Blazer. He's gonna be in a Blazer uniform next season. I fully believe that. So, anyway, anything left to say? I want to make sure we touch on everything.
Well, I mean, this was Dame's guy too, Billups. Obviously, Kidd was his first choice, and Billups was the other guy he mentioned to Chris Haynes. And so I guess, I mean, you said rumors don't get leaked, but I mean, it was pretty obvious that Billups would be Olshey's main candidate from the beginning. But this is also someone that Dame wanted, so I think Dame's going to respond well to this, and this is going to, like, even if he was having doubt creep into his mind, like, this is going to reaffirm that, okay, we have a guy here now who knows what the heck he's doing, and I think he's going to come back refreshed and see this as a new opportunity for him. And I wouldn't put him past it to come back even better next year and have a great mindset for next season.
Yep, I agree with that. So, ready to wrap it up?
Yep. Thank you everyone
Alrighty.
for tuning in. We really appreciate everyone tuning in late again on a Friday night. We had the Stotts Fired stream on a Friday night. Now we have his replacement stream on a Friday night.
You like breaking news on a Friday night, I guess. So, anyway, thank you all for watching. We will have you covered as we head into the offseason here at Blazers Uprise, as far as personnel moves, as far as assistant head coaches that could be hired, all that type of stuff. We will have you covered. Most of our streams will be over on our second channel. Make sure you subscribe to that. Top link in the description box below. Follow us on Twitter. Links are also down there. Subscribe if you're new. Leave a like. It does help the channel. And with that, we're out of here. Thank you to everybody who donated and my mods as well. Until next time, we'll catch you later. As always, peace out. Go Blazers.